I stood on my own front porch, clutching the wooden urn that held my husband's ashes, and watched a locksmith drill into my front door. The sound of metal grinding against metal felt like it was boring into my skull. My father-in-law, Howard Stevens, stood beside his expensive car with his arms crossed, watching with cold satisfaction. A man in a suit stood next to him, a lawyer I assumed from the briefcase. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the drilling. Howard looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. "What does it look like?" "I'm changing the locks to my family home. This is my house," I said, holding the urn tighter against my chest. "Marcus and I lived here for 5 years. "Marcus is dead," Howard said flatly. "And this house was never yours. It belonged to my son, which means it now belongs to me. You're not family anymore, Kelly. You were just his wife." The lawyer stepped forward and handed me a document. "You have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings. After that, anything left will be considered abandoned property." I looked down at the paper, but the words blurred. My husband had been dead for exactly 1 week. I had buried him yesterday. And now his father was throwing me out of my home. "This can't be legal," I whispered. "It is," Howard said with a thin smile. "Check with your own lawyer if you don't believe me. But you still have to be out in 48 hours. I tried to push past them to get inside my own house, but the lawyer blocked my path. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Stevens, but you can't go in until the locks are changed and the property is secured. My things are in there. My husband's things. You'll have supervised access to collect your personal items," the lawyer said in a bored tone. "Tomorrow morning at 9. You'll have 2 hours." Howard pulled out his phone and started texting, completely uninterested in my distress. This was the man who had raised Marcus, who had come to our wedding, who had sat at our dinner table. And now he was treating me like a trespasser. "Howard, please," I said, hating how desperate I sounded. "Can we just talk about this? Marcus would never have wanted." "Marcus isn't here to say what he wanted," Howard interrupted. "And frankly, if he had married someone from a proper family, someone with actual assets, this wouldn't even be an issue. But he chose you, and now I have to clean up the mess." The cruelty in his voice was breathtaking. I had just lost the love of my life, and this man was treating it like an inconvenient business transaction. The locksmith finished and handed Howard a set of new keys. Howard pocketed them without even glancing at me. 48 hours, he repeated. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." They got into their cars and drove away, leaving me standing on the porch holding my husband's ashes, locked out of my own home. I sat on the porch steps, clutching Marcus's urn and trying to breathe. Panic was rising in my chest like a wave, threatening to drown me. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not like this. My phone buzzed with condolence messages from friends I hadn't had the energy to respond to. Flowers were still arriving from the funeral. And now I was being evicted from my home by my own father-in-law. Tears blurred my vision as I looked down at the urn. "I'm sorry," I whispered to Marcus. "I don't know what to do." A neighbor, Mrs. Chen from across the street, approached cautiously. "Kelly, are you okay? I saw those men at your door." I couldn't answer. I just shook my head. "Come to my house," she said gently. "You can't sit out here." But I couldn't move. I couldn't leave the porch. This was still my home. Marcus and I had painted this door together. We had carried groceries up these steps. We had kissed on this porch before going inside to our life together. Howard thought he could just erase all of that. He thought he could take everything Marcus and I had built because I wasn't real family. My hands tightened around the urn. Something hardened inside my grief. I wasn't going to let Howard erase me. I wasn't going to let him steal what Marcus and I had created together. But first I needed to think, to breathe, to figure out what to do next. My name is Kelly Stevens. 2 weeks ago, I was a happily married woman planning a vacation with my husband. Today, I'm a widow being thrown out of my home by my father-in-law. Marcus died in a car accident. A drunk driver ran a red light and hit him as he was driving home from work. He died instantly, the police told me. He didn't suffer. But I was suffering. The grief was like a physical weight pressing down on my chest every moment of every day. I couldn't sleep, could barely eat. And now, on top of everything else, I had to fight to keep my home. Howard Stevens had never liked me. From the moment Marcus introduced me to his family, Howard made it clear I wasn't good enough. I grew up in a working-class family. My parents were teachers. We lived in a modest house and drove used cars. That was enough for Howard to dismiss me as beneath his son. But Marcus didn't care. He loved me for who I was, not where I came from. He told his father repeatedly that my background didn't matter, that love was what mattered. Howard never accepted that. He spent our entire marriage looking for ways to prove I was after Marcus's money, even though Marcus and I both worked and contributed equally to our household. And now, with Marcus gone, Howard saw his opportunity. He could finally get rid of me and take control of everything his son had built. But he didn't know everything. And that would be his downfall. I remembered the day Marcus proposed. We were on a hiking trail overlooking the ocean, the sun setting in brilliant oranges and pinks. He got down on one knee and said, "I'll always protect you, no matter what." It wasn't just a romantic promise. Marcus knew his father. He knew Howard's need for control, his obsession with money and status. Marcus had spent his whole life trying to escape his father's shadow, to build something of his own. "My dad is going to make things difficult," Marcus had told me once, early in our relationship. "He thinks money makes you better than other people. He's going to judge you because your family doesn't have the same resources we do." "Does that bother you?" Ted asked. "Not even a little bit," Marcus said firmly. "You're the best person I know." His opinion doesn't change that. Marcus kept his promise. He protected me from Howard's worst comments, defended me at family gatherings, and made it clear we were a team. He never let his father come between us. Till now. Until death separated us. But even in death, Marcus had protected me. I just didn't realize it yet. Standing on that porch, locked out of my home, I had no idea that my husband had anticipated exactly this scenario. He had prepared for his father's greed. And he had left me the tools I needed to fight back. The first time I met Howard was at our engagement dinner. Marcus had warned me it would be tense, but I hoped his father would at least try to be welcoming. I was wrong. Howard barely looked at me during cocktails. When we sat down to dinner, he spent the entire meal asking me questions designed to highlight the differences between our families. "What does your father do, Kelly?" "He's a high school history teacher." "I see. And your mother?" "She teaches elementary school." Howard had smiled, but it wasn't kind. "How modest." "And your family home?" "We lived in a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. It was perfect for us." "I'm sure it was." His tone made it clear he thought it was anything but perfect. Later that night, I overheard him talking to Marcus in the study. "She's not wife material, son. She comes from nothing. She'll drag you down." "She's brilliant and kind," Marcus shot back. "And I love her. That's all that matters." "Love fades," Howard said coldly. "Money doesn't." But Marcus married me anyway. And for 5 years, we built a beautiful life together despite his father's constant disapproval. We bought our house together, fixed it up, made it our own. And now Howard was trying to take it all away. As if I had never existed. As if the 5 years I spent loving his son meant nothing. Howard's need to control everything had always been obvious. Even when Marcus was alive, his father constantly questioned our financial decisions. "Why did you buy that house? You should have bought in a better neighborhood. Why aren't you saving more? You need to think about the future. You should put the house in a trust. For tax purposes." Marcus always deflected these suggestions. "We're adults, Dad. We've got it handled." But Howard wouldn't let it go. He wanted access to our finances, our accounts, our plans. He claimed it was because he was looking out for family, but really it was about control. "My father doesn't trust anyone outside the family," Marcus explained once. "He thinks everyone is trying to take advantage of us. It's exhausting." The breaking point came 2 years ago when Howard tried to convince Marcus to put our house in his name instead of keeping it in both our names. "It's better for estate planning," Howard had argued. "If something happens to you, the transition will be smoother." "Nothing is going to happen to me," Marcus said. "And Kelly is my wife. The house stays in both our names." Howard had been furious. He didn't speak to us for 3 months. When he finally called, he acted like nothing had happened, but the resentment lingered. I realized now that Howard had been planning for this moment for years. He had been waiting for an opportunity to separate me from Marcus's assets. And death had given him that opportunity. About a year before Marcus died, something changed. Marcus became more secretive, spending hours in his home office with the door closed. When I asked what he was working on, he just smiled and said, "Insurance." "Insurance for what?" "For you." "Was. Just in case." I didn't push. I trusted Marcus completely. If he said he was taking care of something, he was. But I did notice he met with his lawyer more frequently. He updated documents, made phone calls, had conversations I wasn't privy to. At the time, I thought maybe he was working on a business deal or planning a surprise. Now I wondered if he had known. If he had sensed his father would do exactly this. One night he held me close and said, "If anything ever happens to me, promise you won't let my father bully you." "Nothing's going to happen to you," I said. "Just promise me." "I promise." He kissed my forehead. "Good. Because I've made sure you're protected. No matter what he tries, you're going to be okay." I didn't understand then. But standing on my porch, locked out of my home, I finally realized what he meant. Marcus had anticipated his father's cruelty. And he had prepared for it. I just needed to find the evidence. The day Marcus died, I was at work when the police called. They told me there had been an accident, that I needed to come to the hospital immediately. I drove there in a daze, convinced there had been a mistake. Marcus was careful. He always wore his seatbelt. He never drove recklessly. This couldn't be happening. But it was. By the time I arrived, he was already gone. A doctor led me to a quiet room and explained that the injuries had been too severe, that there was nothing they could have done. I don't remember much of that conversation. I just remember collapsing into a chair and feeling like my entire world had ended. Howard arrived at the hospital an hour later. I thought he had come to grieve with me, to share the loss of someone we both loved. Instead, he walked into the room and said, "Where are his important documents? His will, his insurance policies, property deeds?" I stared at him in disbelief. His son had just died and he was asking about paperwork. "I don't know," I whispered. "You need to find them. There are legal matters that need to be handled immediately." "Howard, Marcus just died. Can we please? This is important, Kelly. I need to know what assets are in play." He called his son's life insurance and property assets. I asked him to leave. He did, but not before making it clear he would be handling things from here. I didn't realize then that handling things meant trying to take everything from me. The funeral was a blur. Friends and family offering condolences. Flowers everywhere. The unbearable weight of the casket being lowered into the ground. Howard stood on the opposite side of the grave. His face emotionless. He didn't cry. He barely spoke to anyone. He just watched everything with calculating eyes, like he was assessing the situation rather than mourning his son. After the service, he pulled me aside. "We need to discuss the house." "Not now," I said, exhausted. "Please, Howard. Let me grieve. The house is family property. It needs to stay in the family." "I am family," I said, my voice breaking. "You were married to my son. But he's gone now. The house belongs to the Stevens family. And you're not a Stevens anymore." The cruelty was so casual, so matter-of-fact. As if I was just some temporary inconvenience that could be discarded now that Marcus was gone. "I'm not talking about this today," I said firmly. "Then we'll talk about it tomorrow. But this conversation is happening whether you like it or not." That was yesterday. And today, he had shown up with a lawyer and a locksmith to force me out. I looked down at the legal document he had given me. 48 hours to vacate. 2 days to pack up 5 years of my life and leave the home where I had planned to grow old with my husband. But I wasn't leaving. Not without a fight. I called a friend who let me stay at her apartment that night. I couldn't bear to go to a hotel, and I definitely couldn't stay at Mrs. Chen's house. I needed space to think. Lying on my friend's couch, I pulled out the document Howard had given me. It claimed the house had been in Marcus's name only, and as his sole living parent and closest blood relative, Howard was claiming ownership. But that couldn't be right. Marcus and I had bought the house together. Both our names were on the mortgage. I had seen the paperwork. Unless... Had Marcus changed something without telling me? Well, I refused to believe that. Marcus would never have done something that put me at risk. He loved me. He protected me. Which meant Howard was either lying or mistaken. And given his history of manipulation, I was betting on the former. I texted Howard, I'm not leaving. We'll see what the law decides. His response came immediately. You'll be removed forcibly if necessary. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I would go to the house and collect my things during the supervised visit. And while I was there I would look for something, anything, that proved Marcus had protected me the way he promised. There had to be documents, a will, property records, something Howard didn't know about. Marcus had said he made sure I was protected. I had to trust that. Even now, even in death, I had to trust my husband. The next morning, I arrived at the house at exactly 9 a.m. Howard's lawyer was already there with a locksmith who let me in. I had 2 hours to gather my things. Personal items only, the lawyer reminded me. No furniture, no valuables that belonged to Mr. Stevens. I nodded and walked inside, my chest tight. The house looked exactly the same, yet completely different. It felt empty without Marcus, even though all our belongings were still here. I started in the bedroom, packing clothes and toiletries. Then I moved to the living room, gathering photos and small mementos. The lawyer watched me constantly, making sure I didn't take anything he deemed property of the estate. When I reached Marcus's home office, I paused. This was where he had spent so much time in the months before he died. This was where he had been working on insurance for me. I opened his desk drawer, my hands shaking. Files, pens, business cards. Nothing unusual. I checked the other drawers. More of the same. Then I found it. A small brass key taped to the bottom of the bottom drawer. And attached to it was a note in Marcus's handwriting. 4K. For Kelly. This was for me. I palmed the key quickly before the lawyer could see and continued packing. My heart was racing. What did this key unlock? What had Marcus left for me? Had to find out. The key was small and ornate, clearly designed for something specific. I scanned Marcus's office, looking for anything it might fit. A locked drawer, safe, a box. Then I saw it. Behind the bookshelf on the far wall, there was a small panel that didn't quite match the others. I waited until the lawyer stepped out to take a phone call, then moved quickly. I pulled the bookshelf slightly and found what I was looking for, a small wall safe hidden behind the books. My hands trembled as I inserted the key and turned it. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside were documents, legal documents. I pulled them out carefully, my heart pounding. The first was a deed, a house deed, and it showed that 6 months before his death, Marcus had transferred full ownership to me. The house wasn't in his name. It was in mine alone. The second document was a will, Marcus's will, dated just 3 months before the accident. It gave everything to me. His life insurance, his savings, his investments, everything. And it explicitly stated that his father was to receive nothing. Tears streamed down my face. Marcus had known. He had anticipated exactly what his father would try to do. And he had protected me. I carefully photographed every document with my phone, then put the originals back in the safe. The lawyer couldn't know I had found these. Not yet. I needed to be strategic. I needed legal help. And I needed to do this exactly right so that Howard couldn't wriggle out of what he had done. I finished packing my personal items and left the house, the key hidden in my pocket. The lawyer locked the door behind me, satisfied that I had complied with the 48-hour notice. As soon as I was in my car, I called Marcus's best friend, Kyle. He was a lawyer, corporate law, not estate law, but he would know what to do. Kelly, he answered immediately. I've been worried about you. How are you holding up? Kyle, I need help. Howard is trying to take the house. He claims it belonged to Marcus and now it's his. That son of a... Kyle stopped himself. Okay. Walk me through what happened. I explained everything, the locksmith, the lawyer, the 48-hour notice. Then I told him about the documents I had found. Kyle was silent for a moment. The deed is in your name. Yes. Marcus transferred it to me 6 months ago. And Howard doesn't know about this. I don't think so. He seemed pretty confident when he showed up. Do not show him those documents yet, Kyle said firmly. This is actually perfect. If Howard is claiming ownership of property that isn't his, and he's trying to evict you from your own home, he's committed several legal violations. We can use this. How? Let him think he's winning. Let him proceed with whatever he's planning. Meanwhile, I'll prepare a case. When we reveal the truth, it'll destroy any claim he has. And Kelly, if Marcus's will cuts him out completely, we need to file it with the probate court before Howard tries to submit anything else. What about the insurance? Yes. Howard was asking about Marcus's life insurance the day he died. Kyle cursed softly. I'll look into it. If Howard has tried to claim it, we'll have grounds for fraud charges. Kyle called me back 3 hours later. Kelly, you need to hear this. Howard submitted a claim to Marcus's life insurance company 4 days ago. He claimed to be the beneficiary. Can he do that? No, because you're listed as the sole beneficiary. The insurance company rejected his claim and flagged it as potentially fraudulent. Felt sick. Howard had tried to steal Marcus's life insurance money while I was planning the funeral. There's more, Kyle continued. I pulled some records. Howard has been in financial trouble for the past 2 years. His business is failing. He's got massive debts. I think he was counting on Marcus dying to bail him out. That's disgusting. It is. But it also explains why he's moving so aggressively. He's desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. What do? We document everything. Every interaction with Howard, every claim he makes, every threat. And we prepare to reveal the truth at exactly the right moment. When we do, we need to make sure it's devastating and complete. No room for him to recover. I thought about Marcus's promise to protect me. He had given me the tools I needed. Now I had to use them strategically. Kyle, Howard is planning a will reading. He's acting like he's the executor of Marcus's estate. Perfect. Let him. We'll attend, let him put on his show. And then we'll drop the truth like a bomb. Are you ready for this? I have to be, I said. Marcus protected me. Now I have to finish what he started. Over the next few days I stayed quiet. I didn't contact Howard. I didn't fight the eviction notice. I let him think I was defeated, that I had accepted my fate. Meanwhile, Kyle was building our case. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Chin called me. Kelly, I have something you need to see. My security camera caught something the day before Marcus's funeral. She sent me the video file. It showed Howard and his lawyer standing on my front lawn, having an animated conversation. I turned up the volume and listened. The house will transfer to me automatically once we establish I'm the primary heir, Howard was saying. She won't fight it. She doesn't have the resources. What about the will? The lawyer asked. There is no will. Marcus was young. He thought he had time. That works in our favor. They had been planning this before Marcus was even buried. Howard had been plotting to steal my home while I was grieving. I sent the video to Kyle immediately. Is this legal evidence? His response. Absolutely. This proves premeditation. Howard knew what he was doing was wrong and he did it anyway. We've got him. Everything was falling into place. Howard had been so confident in his plan that he hadn't considered the possibility that Marcus had outsmarted him. Soon, very soon, Howard would learn the truth. And I couldn't wait to see his face when his entire scheme collapsed. Howard scheduled the official will reading for 2 weeks after the funeral. He invited Marcus's extended family, clearly intending to make a show of taking control of the estate. Kyle and I prepared meticulously. We had the real will, the deed, the insurance documentation, and the video evidence. We also had records of Howard's financial troubles and his fraudulent insurance claim. This is going to be brutal, Kyle warned me. Are you sure you're ready? I'm sure. Marcus wanted me protected. This is me protecting what he built for us. The will reading was held at Howard's lawyer's office. I arrived dressed simply, playing the role of grieving widow. Howard sat at the head of the conference table like a king holding court. He smiled when he saw me. Kelly, thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult. Yes, I said quietly, taking a seat. Marcus's aunt, uncle, and cousins were also present. They looked at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Howard had clearly been controlling the narrative, painting me as the poor widow who didn't understand legal matters. We're here to discuss Marcus's estate, Howard began, pulling out documents. As his father and closest living relative, I've taken on the responsibility of executor. Kyle raised his hand. Excuse me, Mr. Stevens, are you officially appointed as executor by the probate court? Howard's smile tightened. The paperwork is being processed. I see. May we proceed with the actual will reading then? Of course. Howard opened a folder. Marcus's will is straightforward. As Howard started reading what he claimed was Marcus's will, a document that conveniently left everything to him, Kyle and I exchanged glances. The will Howard presented was dated 5 years ago, right after Marcus and I got married. It left modest amounts to various family members and designated Howard as the primary beneficiary of the estate. As you can see, Howard concluded, Marcus wanted his assets to remain in the family. The house, the investments, all of it returns to me as the family patriarch. Marcus's aunt looked uncomfortable. Howard, that seems unusual. Wouldn't Marcus have left everything to Kelly? Marcus was young when he made this will. He likely intended to update it but never got around to it. Regardless, this is the legal document we have. Actually, I said quietly, that's not the legal document we have. Howard's head snapped toward me. Excuse me. Kyle pulled out his briefcase. Kelly, would you like to share what you found? I took a deep breath. Marcus updated his will 3 months before he died. I have the original, signed and notarized. The room went completely silent. Howard's face turned red. That's impossible. I would have known. You weren't meant to know, I interrupted. Marcus specifically kept it from you because he knew you'd try to contest it. Kyle spread the documents across the table. This is Marcus's actual last will and testament. As you can see, it's more recent than the document Mr. Stevens just presented. And it explicitly states that Kelly is the sole beneficiary of his estate. Gasps filled the room. Marcus's aunt covered her mouth. Howard looked like he might have a stroke. This is a forgery, Howard shouted, standing up so fast his chair fell backward. You fabricated this to steal my son's money. It's notarized, Kyle said calmly, with 2 witnesses who are prepared to testify. Would you like to see their affidavits? Howard turned to his lawyer, who was frantically flipping through the documents Kyle had provided. The lawyer's face went pale. Howard, the lawyer said quietly, this appears to be legitimate. I don't care how it appears. She's lying. She manipulated my son. Mr. Stevens, Kyle interrupted. If you're claiming Mrs. Stevens manipulated your son, you're welcome to contest the will in court. But I should warn you. Marcus left a video deposition explaining exactly why he made these decisions. He discusses your attempts to control his finances, your disapproval of his marriage, and your threats to disinherit him if he didn't follow your instructions. This was a bluff, there was no video, but Howard didn't know that. His face went from red to gray. Video. Dated 2 months before his death. Very thorough. Very clear about his intentions. I watched Howard process this. He had been so certain of his plan, so confident that I was helpless. Now everything was falling apart. But I wasn't done. Not even close. There's something else, I said. The house. You tried to evict me from my own property. Howard's lawyer shuffled papers. The house was in Marcus's name. No, I pulled out the deed. It wasn't. Marcus transferred full ownership to me 6 months before he died. The house is mine. It's been mine. And you tried to illegally evict me from my own property. The conference room erupted. Marcus's family members were talking over each other, demanding explanations. Howard's lawyer was frantically checking documents. And Howard himself looked like he was about to collapse. You had no right, he whispered. That house is family property. It's my property, I said firmly. Marcus chose to give it to me because he loved me and wanted me to be secure. Something you never understood. Kyle pulled out another file. And while we're discussing rights, let's talk about the life insurance claim. Howard's eyes widened. You filed a claim with Marcus's life insurance company, claiming to be the beneficiary. But Kelly is the listed beneficiary. You committed insurance fraud. That was a mistake, Howard said quickly. A misunderstanding. Really? Because the insurance company has a recorded phone call where you explicitly claimed the policy was yours. That's not a misunderstanding, Mr. Stevens. That's fraud. Marcus's aunt stood up. Howard, what have you done? I was trying to protect family assets, Howard insisted, but his voice was shaking. No, I said. You were trying to steal from me. You showed up at my house while I was grieving, you changed my locks, you tried to evict me, and you attempted to steal my husband's life insurance. All because you never thought I deserved to be part of your family. I pulled out my phone and played the video Mrs. Chen had provided. The conference room watched as Howard and his lawyer discussed their plan to take the house before the funeral. The silence that followed was deafening. Kyle spread out additional documents. Mr. Stevens, I've also uncovered some interesting information about your finances. You're currently $3 million in debt. Your business is failing. You've been borrowing against your assets for the past 2 years. Howard's face went white. I believe, Kyle continued, that you were counting on Marcus's death to bail you out financially. When you realized Kelly was the beneficiary, you panicked and tried to steal everything before she could secure it legally. Marcus's uncle spoke up. Howard, is this true? My financial situation is none of your business, Howard snapped. It is when you're trying to steal from your daughter-in-law to cover your debts, Kyle replied. And speaking of legality, Kelly, would you like to tell them about the criminal complaints we're filing? He nodded. We're reporting the insurance fraud. We're also pursuing charges for the illegal eviction attempt. And we're seeking a restraining order to prevent Howard from contacting me or coming near my property. Howard's lawyer stood up. Howard, I need to speak with you privately. Now. They stepped out of the conference room. Through the glass wall, I could see the lawyer gesturing frantically while Howard shook his head in denial. Marcus's family members approached me one by one. I'm so sorry, his aunt said. We had no idea he was doing this to you. We always liked you, his cousin added. Marcus loved you so much. This is what he would have wanted. For the first time since the eviction attempt, I felt some measure of peace. These people understood. They saw Howard for what he was. When Howard and his lawyer returned to the conference room, Howard looked defeated. His lawyer spoke for him. My client acknowledges there have been misunderstandings. We're prepared to withdraw all claims against Mrs. Stevens and her property. In exchange for what? Alas, we'd like to avoid criminal charges. That's not up to us, I said. The insurance fraud is being investigated by the state. But I won't pursue the illegal eviction charges if Howard agrees to stay away from me permanently. Carl pulled out a prepared document. Mr. Stevens will sign this agreement stating he will have no contact with Mrs. Stevens, will not contest the will or any of Marcus's estate decisions, and will not make any public statements about her or this situation. Howard looked like he wanted to argue, but his lawyer put a hand on his arm. Sign it, Howard. This is my son's money, Howard said weakly. No, I said firmly. This was Marcus's money, and he chose to give it to me because he trusted me and loved me. You could have been part of our lives. You could have been a supportive father-in-law and grandfather if we'd had children. But you chose greed over family. You chose control over love. Howard signed the document with shaking hands. We're done here, Kyle said. Mr. Stevens, if you violate any terms of this agreement, we'll pursue every legal option available. Do you understand? Howard nodded and left without another word. His lawyer followed, looking exhausted. The rest of Marcus's family stayed. And for the first time since his death, I felt like I had real family supporting me. 3 months after the confrontation, I stood in Marcus's home office one last time. I had made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. I was selling the house. Are you sure? Kyle had asked when I told him. You fought so hard to keep it. I fought to keep what Marcus wanted me to have, I explained. But this house, it's full of memories that hurt too much right now. I need a fresh start. The real estate agent said I could get an excellent price. The house was in a good neighborhood, well maintained, perfect for a young family. I packed Marcus's things carefully, donating most of his clothes but keeping items that held special meaning. His watch, his favorite books, his photos. In his office I found more letters. Letters he had written to me but never sent. Letters that said things like, I hope I'm being paranoid about my father. And if you're reading this, I'm gone, but please know I tried to protect you. I held those letters and cried. Not the desperate, broken crying from the early days of grief, but something gentler. Sadness mixed with gratitude. Marcus had protected me. Even knowing his father's nature, even preparing for the worst. He had made sure I would be okay. That was love. Real deep lasting love. I walked through the empty house one last time, whispering goodbye to the memories. Then I locked the door and walked away, ready to start fresh. I kept your promise alive, I said to Marcus wherever he was. And now I'm going to live the life you wanted for me. The house sold quickly. With the money from the sale and Marcus's life insurance, I had resources I had never imagined having. I could have used it selfishly. Bought a mansion, traveled the world, lived in luxury. But that wasn't what Marcus would have wanted. And it wasn't what I wanted either. I established a foundation in Marcus's name. The Marcus Stevens Memorial Scholarship, providing full college tuition to students from working-class families who wanted to pursue education but couldn't afford it. Students like I had been. Students whose families were teachers and factory workers and nurses. People who worked hard but didn't have wealth to pass down. The first year we funded 5 scholarships. By the second year we had expanded to 15. Students wrote me letters thanking me, telling me how the scholarship changed their lives. That's when I understood what Marcus had really given me. Not just financial security but the ability to make a difference. To turn his death into something meaningful. I also went back to school myself, pursuing a master's degree in education. I wanted to teach, to help students the way Marcus's memory was helping them through the foundation. My life looked completely different than it had a year ago. I was single, living in a new apartment, building a new career. But I wasn't broken. I was different, yes, changed by grief. But also stronger. Howard's business eventually declared bankruptcy. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he had moved to a smaller house, that he was working part-time to make ends meet. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. Just sadness that he had destroyed his relationship with his son's widow over greed. 1 year after Marcus's death, I stood at his grave with fresh flowers. It was a beautiful spring day, warm and clear. I miss you, I said, touching the headstone. Every single day. But I'm okay. Just like you promised I would be. In the distance I saw a figure watching. Howard. He was standing by his car, far enough away that he wasn't violating the restraining order, but close enough that I knew he was there. He looked older, smaller somehow. All the arrogance and power had drained away, leaving just a sad old man who had lost everything that mattered while chasing things that didn't. I could have been angry. I could have called security. But instead, I just looked at him for a long moment, then turned back to Marcus's grave. Howard had tried to take everything from me. He had tried to erase me, to steal what Marcus and I built together. He had failed. Not because I was stronger than him. Not because I was smarter or richer or more connected. But because Marcus had loved me enough to protect me, even in death. And I had loved him enough to honor that protection by fighting back. I placed the flowers on the grave and walked toward my car. As I passed Howard, I paused. He loved you, you know, I said quietly. Despite everything. He always hoped you'd change. Howard's eyes filled with tears. I know. I'm sorry. Tell him, not me. I gestured toward the grave. I'm not the one who needs to hear it. I got in my car and drove away, watching Howard in my rearview mirror as he walked slowly toward his son's grave. I hoped he found peace. I hoped he learned something from all this. But mostly, I hoped Marcus could see that I had kept my promise. I hadn't let his father bully me. I had fought back, won, and used that victory to build something beautiful. This wasn't the end of Marcus and me. It was my beginning, the life he had wanted me to have. A life of purpose, meaning, and strength. I smiled as I drove toward my new apartment, toward my students, toward a future that held grief but also hope. Howard had tried to seize our home after Marcus died. But what he didn't understand was that home wasn't a building. It was the life Marcus and I built together. And that could never be taken from me. Not by death. Not by greed. Not by anyone. Carried Marcus with me. In the foundation we created. In the students we helped. In the strength he gave me to stand up and fight. That was his real legacy. Not the house, not the money, not the legal documents. It was me. Living. Thriving. Proving that love outlasts everything else.